Welcome to the Champions of Active Women podcast. In this podcast, we will interview individuals who have been successful within athletics and beyond. We hope that these interviews will encourage and inspire girls and women to be active for a lifetime, to reach their goals, and to break new barriers in sport and life. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and the Sports Medicine Research Institute at the University of Kentucky. The mission of the Active Women's Health Initiative is to optimize health and promote physical activity and wellness for girls and women across the lifespan. We hope you enjoy our conversations and join us in understanding women's health today to ensure women's health tomorrow. Libby Hurley is the founder and president of Together We Try. Together We Try is a company that specializes in training and conditioning men and women from all levels of fitness and experience to compete in triathlons. Libby Hurley is a 1991 graduate of the Physician's Assistant program at the University of Kentucky. After graduation, Libby practiced as a physician's assistant in general practice in Brandenburg, Kentucky, and Neurosurgery and Neuroscience in Chicago, Illinois. After 10 years of practice, she competed in her first triathlon and began Together We Try in 2001. She has since trained over 20,000 athletes in individual and team formats. She has authored a book titled Try the Journey, a woman's inspirational guide to becoming a triathlete in 12 weeks, and has given a TED Talk on the topic. Libby is a 4-time Ironman finisher and is passionate about helping others reach their goals through triathlon training and competition. She's also the mother of 3 amazing kids. All are triathletes with an interest in other sports, including hockey, tennis, sailing, and hiking. At the end of the day, we all believe in moving and getting out there, regardless of the weather. Currently, Libby is working as a physician's assistant in independent, assisted, and memory care facilities, functioning as the resident healthcare provider for all residents. Welcome, Libby. Thank you for joining us today.
Oh my goodness, Dee, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Me too. And so we'll just jump right in. I know you have all kinds of things to share. And as I shared in your bio, you are an amazing role model for an active lifestyle, both by your own active pursuits and training other people as well. As part of your company, Together We Try. So I'm wondering if you could just start by giving our audience a brief background on Together We Try.
Absolutely. Well, the exciting thing is this is the 20th year for Together We Try.
Wow.
Started it 20 years ago, and our whole mission, our whole goal is to help people believe in themselves through the journey of triathlon. So we teach people how to swim, teach people how to bike, teach people how to run, put it all together and cross the finish line, and hopefully it is a life-changing experience.
Sounds like you're interested in more than just the physical aspects of it there.
100%, yeah. And I find that if you're just in it for the goal of PR, of, winning, getting on the podium, then it does not become a lifestyle sport. It's more of a one and done. But our hope is that we get our athletes to absolutely love the journey of learning and the journey of progress, of growth, and just putting themselves out there into something that they thought maybe they couldn't do, and obviously then accomplish.
So what was the impetus to start Together We Try? Tell me about the beginning.
Sure. So my background, I was a swimmer growing up. So I used to swim 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours after school, and one of those sports that takes up all of your time and helps with ADD.
We share the swimming and background in common, so I know all about it.
Right. And that propelled me into a love of that commitment to a sport. When I moved to San Francisco after I married my husband, I was working as a neurosurgical PA, which I graduated from the PA school at UK, so go Big Blue. I was out of my sport and really looking for inspiration, kind of looking to get back into some sort of activity. And I saw the Escape from Alcatraz. That's the first triathlon I had ever seen. Really didn't even know what a triathlon was, but I stood at the finish line and just watched all of these athletes of all shapes, all sizes, all ages, all ability levels. And as they crossed the finish line, just their sense of awe and accomplishment struck me as something that I wanted to experience.
Yeah.
So the following year, I did the Escape from Alcatraz and was one of the last athletes to cross the finish line. But I crossed it and I
Mm-hmm.
finished, and that really changed the way I felt about myself, and actually was reminiscent of the joy I had with my sport growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like right then and there, I needed to extend that experience to others. And Together We Try conceptually was born at that finish line. And then it kind of naturally evolved into what it is today.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what it is today. What kind of things do you do for people? How do you help them along this journey to triathlons?
Sure. So we moved to Chicago, and there weren't any triathlon training programs at all. So I started in a local gym. We had 16 women, which was our first training group. And it was fantastic because it didn't start out as wanting to be a women program, but those were the only participants that were willing to kind of put themselves out on the line.
Yeah.
And so we started out as women only because this was the participant uh, venue that kind of evolved.
Mm-hmm.
16 women, many of them didn't know how to swim. Many of them hadn't been on a bike since they were 10, hadn't run since they were a child. And so we kind of organically figured out how to shape all of them into a cohesive community and this amazing, inspiring group. So that was the start of the trajectory of multiple groups. We ended up adding a men's training group, a co-ed training group. We evolved into not only sprint distance, but all 4 distances of training to Olympic, international, half Ironman, and Ironman. And now we offer training programs throughout the year. We offer indoor triathlons, 5Ks, beginner training programs, all the way up to the advanced Ironman levels. So it's been a very fun journey discovering how we can accommodate all levels of athletes.
Yeah, and it sounds like really anyone and everyone has a home in this organization and in this company.
And that's the culture we wanted. When you hear triathlon, a lot of people think that this is a superhuman sport and that you have to be just top of your game and have to, for one, know how to swim, bike, and run in
Right.
order to
Yeah.
accomplish it. But our whole goal is to spread the word that anybody can learn how to swim, how to bike, how to run,
Mm-hmm.
and put it all together if you have the interest in discovering.
Yeah, and I find it amazing that you can, get somebody from zero, really not being able to swim or not having much experience on a bike besides childhood, and in a relatively short amount of time, have them ready to do a triathlon. That just must be really empowering.
It is so empowering, and the inspirational ripple that creates for not only that participant, but the family members, the community, the neighbors, their friends. So one person can affect so many just by putting themselves out there and having the courage to try. And so that's what has been my inspiration through all of this, is finding that one person that does have that little bit of hope, that their hope outweighs their fear, and that they can jump in and have the success. And it is a beautiful thing to experience.
So, we're talking on Zoom today because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I'm wondering if you could just share how the pandemic has impacted training and, your interactions with people and this organization.
Yeah, it's been a little tough, I have to admit.
Mhm.
There's no races right now. All
Right.
triathlons have been pulled. Initially, when this whole pandemic uh, happened, all pools were closed, all gyms were closed, and so it really um, took away our ability to train together as a group.
Mhm.
So we created an online community. We created a virtual community called the I Am Challenge, which is an Ironman a month. So we inspired all of our athletes to complete an Ironman within the course of a month. So an Ironman is a 2.5-mile swim, a 112-mile bike, and a marathon. So it sounds like this crazy distance, and it is kind of crazy to try and accomplish in one day.
Mm-hmm.
But over the month, everybody started thinking, oh my goodness, I can be an Ironman within this month. So it's this super exciting, supportive community. They train on their own, but they're inspired to come back and share their accomplishments and plug in the mileage on our little Google Doc that we've shared. And at the end of the month, we have a virtual little celebration. We have awards for everybody who's accomplished their Ironman. And it's really kept us together, and it's kept us encouraged through this tough time to not give up on ourselves. And even though there's been this crazy blip in our lifestyle, in our families, in our world, in our schedule, that's not the time to give up on yourself. And that's not the time to throw in the towel and say, well, now I can't race, and now I don't have my team. You still have your team, and you can still have your goals. It's just in a different format. So we've been able to encourage our athletes through that community. And we also put on a virtual 5K at the end of every month, which is a very fun family challenge for our entire, not only our athletes, but it's infiltrated into our community of families just saying, today's the day that we're all going to do this 5K, whether it's walking with our dog, whether it's walking together, or whether our kids are running it and the parents are walking it, then they get a little digital finisher certificate. So it's been a super fun directional shift of how we can still stay inspired despite all of the tough stuff we're facing right now.
Yeah, the world is certainly different. And, I have to switch gears here a little bit and talk about you. You mentioned Ironman, and I love that you're giving your athletes a way to do their own Ironman. You yourself are a 4-time Ironman finisher. So I'm wondering if you could share some memorable experiences from your Ironman
Absolutely.
competitions.
So first of all, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would have the ability to be an Ironman. When I did my first, the Escape from Alcatraz, that was so inspiring, and I thought I just reached the peak. Like that's as far as I ever need to go.
Yeah.
And I thought all those Ironman athletes were nuts, and there's no way. And as you stay committed to your health, as you stay consistent with your health, you just realize how powerful you really are. You realize how strong you really are. And each incremental increase in distance or speed, you really do start to believe, okay, like maybe I can do that half Ironman, and okay, maybe, just maybe I can do that Ironman. So my first Ironman was after my son Tyler was born. I believe he was about a year when I did my first. I truly had no idea what I was getting myself into. I had trained for the distances, but I didn't even know there were cutoff times, that you had to do the swim within a certain time frame, the bike within a certain time frame, and the run within a certain time frame, or you're pulled off the course. So my husband and son, we went to Florida, was my first Ironman.
Okay.
And you're allowed a break, well, really anytime. You bring your own food, you supplement your nutrition, you can rest and stretch whenever you want, but as long as you get it within this time frame. So my first Ironman, I said, Craig and Tyler, come meet me for a break between the 56 miles. And we sat down and had a little picnic, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And there were athletes like biking by, like, what are you doing? Like, what?
Yeah.
And I'm just having this pleasant time with, my son and my husband. And then was told, you only have 2.5 hours to finish the next 56 miles or you're pulled off the course. So painstakingly, barely made the cutoff.
Yeah.
Killed myself to make the cutoff. And then my run was basically a walk, but same story. I had to make sure that I made it within the time cutoff. made it within like 2 minutes of being pulled off the entire course.
Yeah.
But even that accomplishment made me realize, okay, didn't really know what I was getting myself into, took my sweet time, had a picnic with my
Talk about
husband.
balance here. You know, you have a picnic in the
Exactly,
middle of your Ironman.
exactly. And just felt like that accomplishment was just another, if I can do this, what else can I do?
Mm-hmm.
So the next couple triathlon or Ironman, I had friends to support along the journey. And that's always been such a huge um, experience for me, to just make sure that I'm not necessarily doing it just for me, but helping people along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what all of my Ironman have been. I've met great friends on the course. I've been able to have lifelong friendships and experiences through these accomplishments that were beyond what I ever thought possible.
And you also, so you mentioned one of your children, but you have two others. You have three children, and you shared with me that they are all triathletes.
Yeah,
Could you talk a little bit about how clearly you've been doing this from the time you became a mom, and I'd just love to hear about how you incorporate them into that active lifestyle, and a little bit about their journeys too.
for sure. Well, they may not realize how forced they were into the
They didn't
sport.
have a choice, even though
They
they
didn't
may
have a
think they
choice.
did.
You really didn't know. So when we put on our indoor triathlons, they were my crew. They would have to recruit their friends to be, spectators, cheerleaders. They would break down the events. And so it was just something that they did. We would do the local 5Ks. They would do all of our indoor triathlons with me. And then there became a time frame where each of them said, you know what, I think I want to do the real thing, which I think an indoor triathlon is the real thing too. No level makes you more of a triathlete than not. And so they all have just slowly evolved into experiencing the sport. And they each have recognized how much fun it is to have, and healthy on their bodies, to have the multi-sport events. If you're sick of the bike or the swim, guess what? Now you get to get on the bike. If you're
Yep.
sick of being on the bike, guess what? Now you get to get off the bike and run. And just seeing all the different levels of young to old, I think it's been a huge eye opener for them that they can do their sport, whatever it is, throughout their entire life. So they may not realize how influential or forced I have kind of placed this in their life, but I do think they appreciate understanding the sport and the pride of, hey, I have accomplished something that I didn't think I could. I do have one funny story. So I have three amazing kids. So three teenagers, e-learning right now, which our house has become a lot smaller, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. We've got two e-learners at home, and it feels very tiny.
Very tiny. In fact, I'm like shoved down into our basement right now because
Yep.
of trying to find some space. But because my children didn't realize that triathlon wasn't a part of everyone's life, my youngest, we were at a farm one day, and she assumed that every mom did an Ironman, after the birth of each child. Because
Oh my gosh, I love that.
after Tyler, I did an Ironman. After Quincy, I did an Ironman. After Casey, I did an Ironman. And it really was, for me, a celebration of life and celebration of, kind of health and wellness, and celebration of their birth too. That this amazing body had the ability to, steward in these amazing human beings, and then have the example of health. So we're at a park, or at a little Wagner farm, local little farm, and Casey sees a mother of six and says, "Mom, that mom's done six Ironman." And I said, "That's fantastic. How do you know that, Casey?" And she said, "Because she has six kids."
Oh my gosh.
So she just assumed all moms did an Ironman after the birth of their children. So sometimes I think it's funny they don't realize how unique the sport is, but I think that's awesome too.
Yeah, and it just speaks to how ingrained it was in their life growing up, and just became a part of who they were and who your family is.
Exactly. And they've evolved to be different. Like they are hockey players, tennis players, and so triathlon isn't their dominant sport. But I think it definitely has given them foundation of that desire to not necessarily win, but to stay committed to their health and wellness.
And they're teenagers, so who knows if they play a different sport now that's dominant, they'll have this background that they can always come back to. And I think that's a beautiful thing and a good thing for lifetime physical activity.
Absolutely. And my oldest is kind of like video games is his sport right now. But I'm certain he'll come back to finding a physical passion again.
Yep, there are ebbs and flows to everything.
Yeah, of course.
So I'm interested in, you've trained lots of individuals at this point, over 20,000, which is just an incredible number to me. And you've trained both men and women. So I'm wondering if you could talk about any of the differences you see in either the needs, preferences, challenges that you see with men and women.
Yeah. So, I mean, clearly, just at base, women have a completely different physical structure, hormonal structure. We just have different recovery needs, different nutritional needs. And I think 20 years ago, even 20 years ago, there wasn't much focus on the differences. And so we were all pretty much refueling equally. The training was equal. We were trying to kind of keep up with the men per se, and putting in the same amount of mileage and putting in the same intensity work. And I think we were noticing quite a bit of burnout, different injuries. And I quickly learned, with my medical background, of course, as well, that there wasn't enough knowledge on the differences of training between men and women. I think that has evolved quite a bit, and we have, again, women only training groups that train very differently than men. The other difference between just the essence of training and recovery and nutrition, I think women have this need, this desire, this pull to wear 1,000 different hats. And so we're daughter, we're mother, we're business owner, we're wife, we're chef, we're house cleaner. And not to say that men don't contribute in all of this, they absolutely do. But we have, through evolution, I guess, gained that gene that was part of our responsibility. So I think often we have stretched ourselves so thin that having the energy to put our health and wellness first has been a huge challenge for women, and particularly moms that are wanting to give their all to their children, and wives that are wanting to give their all to their husbands and partners. And I think our nature is to give much of ourselves outwardly, and we forget to give within. And so I see that challenge all the time with our athletes who sign up. They have this great intention initially, but then they feel pulled so many directions that the first thing that falls is their commitment to themselves. And I feel like men have a much healthier self-awareness and ability to say, I need to be strong for my family. I need to commit to myself in order to commit to my family. And I'm hoping to change that message for women as well, that we have just as much of a right and we have just as much of a need to commit to ourselves and fill our cup first before we can really have the ability to adequately fill others. And I think that probably is the biggest difference, is the mental health, the mental awareness that we count, and that our self-love is just as important as the outward love.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important message. And I, in my research and in just working and interacting with women around activity, we see that all the time, that women put themselves last and take care of everyone else first. And I, in your case, it's impacting training and them being successful at something that they really want to do.
That's right. That's right. And I think I see it a lot after, they'll play their sport in college or they'll play their sport in high school, and then the expectation of wearing a different hat, and then that sport falls to the wayside. And that takes a big joy out of your life as well. And whether you've had a sport or not, just that health and wellness of taking care of yourself somehow falls off your to-do list. So I think kind of bringing that back in and reminding ourselves that we always should have space on our to-do list for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. So before the interview, we were talking about, you as a business owner and a mom, and you're also working as a physician's assistant, and you have your hands in a lot of pools. So do you have to give yourself those reminders? And do you have any other strategies or tips for how to make sure you take care of you?
Yeah, actually, that message that I just gave was the biggest reminder to myself.
talking in the mirror
Exactly.
there.
So I'm like, Libby, remember what you were saying. I am guilty, like most of us, of putting others first and then realizing that, oh my gosh, I haven't committed to myself. So for me, and I kind of touched on this a little bit, is making sure that I have a community, making sure that I have people that are also depending on me, people that are needing, my hand, and I am needing their hand just as much they're needing mine. So I feel like sometimes I won't commit to myself, and I'll say all these fluffy words of fill your cup before you can fill others. But if I have a community or a partner or a friend that I can convince myself even that I'm helping them, and if I don't show up for them, then I'm disappointing them, in turn obviously disappointing myself. But those are my biggest strategies, obviously scheduling it out, but having that team, that community, that accountability, and friendship, and holding each other up is my definitely go-to. If I find myself not committing to myself or not working out, generally it's because I have kind of pulled myself internally, pulled myself into more of a, these are the tasks that I have to do, rather than being just in the here and now and remembering that togetherness and community, whether it's togetherness apart, 6 feet apart, is so important to have somebody that's holding you up when you're feeling like you don't want to hold yourself up.
Yeah. So thinking about other people, are there people, particularly thinking about your active lifestyle, are there people who inspire you and kind of encourage you in moments where, you need that inspiration?
Absolutely. So I have the luxury of having some phenomenal coaches on board, and we meet periodically. And 9 times out of 10, we're all kind of commiserating about the same thing, not getting my training in, too busy here, needing to inspire others. And guess what? I'm not even practicing what I preach, and I feel like I'm not being authentic. And so it does help so much to have that community of coaches that we can be super real with and share our failings and our successes. But I do have to say family. I have to bring this a little bit back to my 2 sisters, my mom and my dad. They're probably my biggest cheerleaders. They know who I am. They know all of my failings. They know me inside and out. And it's always okay. And they're always going to encourage me and let me know that, I can accomplish whatever I want. And right now, maybe it's not the time that I want to accomplish it. So I feel like my family has been a cornerstone for me that has helped encourage me to be who I am.
Awesome. Sounds like some really good inspiration for everything, not just an active lifestyle. So what advice, if you kind of boil down your experiences, what advice would you give to women about being active and leading an active lifestyle?
So I think believing in your dreams, believing in your journey, validating your dreams, validating your journey. I find myself comparing, I find myself looking exteriorly for the validation rather than my own story. And sometimes I will think that, my story is not good enough, that my story doesn't look like the other person's exterior story. I don't look that buff. I don't look that thin. I don't look that pulled together. I don't look whatever somebody else's exterior is.
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to emphasize for women to constantly practice, again, I'm talking to myself here, that belief in their own hopes, their own dreams, their own journeys, and to not give up on yourself. Never give up on yourself, whether that's as a 6-year-old child, whether that's a 17-year-old not understanding how she fits into this strange high school world,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's 19, 20-year-old college student who is so bogged down with e-learning and not knowing what they're going to do for college, or whether that's the mom who is stuck in the dishes and diapers, or the grandmother fearing how much longer they have to live. We all have a story, and we all have the ability to put ourselves down or the ability to build ourselves up. And I think that message of believing in who you are and knowing who you are, there's nobody that can do Libby better than Libby. There's nobody that can do D better than D. And so if we give ourselves that right and that validation that we are perfect just as we are, and that no one knows better what we need than our own heart.
Awesome. Well said. If any of our listeners are interested in learning more about what you're doing at Together We Try, where can they get that information?
So our webpage is www.togetherwetry, as in triathlon.com. Mm-hmm. And if anybody is interested in our online community, it's free. We have a Together We Try Facebook page, and the TWT I Am Challenge is free as well. We do a virtual strength workout for all levels, and it's just a very fun community to encourage you to stay on task and to be committed to your health and wellness. I also have a little TED Talk. It's you can just look up Libby Hurley TED Talk, and it just shares much of what I've shared here, so you may not be interested, but kind of the journey of how Together We Try started. And I have a book called Try the Journey, which shares many inspirational stories of women who have inspired me and who have gone through great depths of growth in order to believe in themselves and through this journey of triathlon. So those are other ways that you can find out about Together We Try.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today?
Gosh, I think we covered it, Dee.
We got through it all.
No, I'm just so grateful that you were able to spend some time with me and let me share my story. And I know that this has been something that we've had on the books for a while. And thank you for your diligence and keeping on task with me and getting me on board here. It's just been wonderful sharing my story.
Well, I enjoyed our conversation today, and I thank you for inspiring our audience to get out there and get moving.
All right, and stick with it and go Big Blue.
Thank you, Libby.
All right, we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Champions of Active Women podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Active Women's Health Initiative and was produced by the Faculty Media Depot at the University of Kentucky. If you enjoyed this episode, you can listen and subscribe to all of our episodes wherever you find your podcasts. For up-to-date information about the Active Women's Health Initiative, you can find us on social media at UKAWHI. Thank you for supporting us as we work to promote health and physical activity among girls and women across the lifespan.